Hello, welcome to Chit Chat with Manoj. I am Manoj Singh. Hello, Adab, Namaste. As part of the life-changing event series, tonight's discussion is on pandemic. We are still in it, but it's a very heartbreaking an experience which we'll never forget. For tonight's discussions, our guests are Dr. Harvinder Singh. He's a practicing oncologist, clinical assistant professor at the University of Maryland School of Medicine. Welcome, Harvinder.
Thank you so much, Manoj.
Ritvik Ramakrishnan, a STAMPS president, scholar at Georgia Tech. Welcome, Ritvik.
Thank you, Manoj.
And Surfi Rahman, a restaurateur, humanist, hospitality professional, and well-known. Everyone in this area knows him very well because of his well-known restaurants, Indique, Bombay Bistro, and the Rasa chain of restaurants.
Hi, Manoj.
Hi, welcome, Surfi. Before we start the discussion tonight, we all want to remember the fellow citizens and people we have lost due to COVID. We want to salute all the heroes, frontline workers, medical staff, and scientists who came up with vaccine in record time. Vaccines which work and are approved by FDA and CDC. I'll encourage everyone to please get vaccinated. Worldwide, more than 5 million people have died, 246 million infected. And in fact, while I was having the dinner, I had a number in my notes of 700,000, but there was an update that now we have reached 750,000 just in US who are no more with us. The sad part is it could have been contained and controlled if China had told the truth. But it has happened. Even in US, if we would have taken the more stricter measures, I feel like the numbers would have been less, but that here we are, and that's all we can do. So I still remember last January, I had just landed from India and came out of immigration. And there was a lot of news crew over there. And I was wondering what's going on. I asked one of them, one of the big ones, and they said, you know what, we are waiting for the Air China passengers. There is an epidemic in China. And I had not read much about COVID. I just took it lightly and I left And of course, comes February. I had another trip back home, and that's when the hell started breaking news. There were a few patients in New York, and India had just started to shut down the conferences, training. Every day, like every hour, there was an update, and I am so happy. In fact, my friends and family told me that's the best decision I made, that I canceled my trip because they had started quarantine. So, Dr. Singh, first question to you. Tell us about your early days when the COVID, you came to know about it. And of course, the numbers were peaking in New York before they came to Maryland, and it became sort of shutdown started. What was going on in your daily life, in your medical field? How did you tell us
So
about your experience?
sure. So initially when obviously you heard about coronavirus, we had already heard about the SARS virus. You heard about the MERS virus. So one knew that yes, these viruses originate, and they were like, even with SARS, it originated in China. But then, I mean, obviously at that time too, there was a lot of worry, and but then it was sort of contained. The virus really got contained very quickly. It didn't spread that much. So initially, when those news came about that, oh, there is a virus, that is originated in China, and it seems that now there are going to be cases in U.S. and all over the world. I mean, there was almost like, okay, is it going to be like another SARS, and then 2 or 3 months of anxiety, and then things will be back to normal. But this was not to be. I mean, this sort of started spreading very quickly, and then it was not just a matter of weeks, and New York was almost going to shut down, or it shut down completely. I had my training in New York like 20 plus years ago, and one of the hospitals, like I trained at Mount Sinai, and one of the hospitals was Elmhurst Hospital. So Elmhurst Hospital seemed like it was the epicenter where there were so many deaths. It was like total chaos in the city. So I mean, that was very scary because you could relate to it right away as to how this is just ravaging the whole city. And soon we knew that it's going to come. I mean, this is not, we really can't escape. So I remember at that time, so we, obviously there were alerts. I'm part of University of Maryland, so there were alerts going on in the system as to what we're going to do about it or how we're going to prevent. And there was an interesting piece, and I work in oncology, so we deal with immunosuppressed patients, and so you're sort of, two-way problems, because one, that cancer really does not stop. I mean, people get, people have been getting cancers, or they're getting chemotherapy. So those are life-saving sort of, things that you're trying to do, or life-prolonging things that you're trying to do. And on the other hand, they also immunosuppressed, so they could get COVID, if they get exposed to other people. So it was, and there was a piece in New York Times actually, where Singapore had, they had published their experience. It was not any journal or anything like that, and where they said how they started taking precautions so quickly with masks and gloves, and making sure that anybody that's coming, all staff and all patients are wearing that. So we sort of, at our center, we implemented that right away, even though it was not a uniform university guideline. I think the medical profession was sort of in a divide where the administrators, nobody was really prepared that we have thousands or millions of masks and millions of N95s, and or gloves, or all the your biosafety gowns and everything else. So nobody was prepared. So everybody was trying to gauge as to where we are going to go, and I think that took a precious couple months out of that initial rush, and then that, I think, led to the pandemic peaking much more sort of than it would have. I think if we had started with common sense precautions right at that time. Obviously there's the politics of it too, as all of us know. They were sort of like, if you don't think about it, maybe it does not exist, or if you forget about it, or if you ignore it, then that was not to be. And I think so that sort of how it kind of started with us. But then, I mean, I think life changed right away. You have to wear, you're wearing scrubs all the time, and you're wearing gowns, and you're wearing all the safety hazards, and then safety gear. and then mask the whole day. So, at the end of the day, you're literally like, I think 5 times as tired as one would normally be, at the end of the day. And then you're going to the hospital, making rounds, seeing all those patients that are, dying in front of your eyes, or with complications, or younger patients. I mean, I think that was very humbling, very scary. You feel like, I always used to feel, oh, we are in the country with the best medical setup. Like, we can take care of things if it's something that is reversible, if it's something that we can, I always used to take a lot of pride in that, that, oh, we could do that. But we were like sort of helpless lots of time. ICU, like we had ICU beds everywhere in the, so all the ORs were shut. The floors were made into ICU bed. The emergency room was made into ICU beds. Wherever they could create an intensive care bed, it was all intensive care, beds.
Yeah. What I like about this country is the patriotism. When New York was speaking, doctors came in to help their colleagues, even, and all the medical students, first year, second year, no, it doesn't matter which year you are in, had to show up, and no
Right.
leaves, no vacations, and they flew in from all over America to New York.
Yeah.
And of course, same likewise. Very rare to find. I was so touched by it. There was a lot of sort of philanthropy going on. I mean, even the restaurants were supporting the medical staff, sending in food. We were going in there and giving, distributing food and all that stuff. So that's what I love. So
Yep, no, that was apparent all the time.
Yeah,
You were really helping out and appreciating, what you've been doing.
yeah. Ritvik, why don't you talk about, so what happened? I mean, in the beginning, your in-person class, and suddenly all this.
Yeah, definitely. I can certainly just speak on a student perspective how it was like for me. So, just for context, during March of 2020, I was a senior in high school. So I was going to class in person. I had a spring break, and I was like, "Yes, we finally get a week off." I'm hitting the verge of senioritis, where we start to get lazy, and we begin to graduate high school. And then we get an email from our teacher a day after my birthday, actually. And the teacher was like, "Hey," the principal was like, "Hey, we got another 2 weeks off," and because of COVID. So we were like, "Okay, that's great. We get another 2 weeks off. So that's 3 weeks off of school." And by the time I get back to school, it'd be like first week of April. So it would just be 2 months, and it'd be all over, right? But then the pandemic, of course, surged, right? Just like what Harvinder was saying. So many people began to get cases, spreading state after state. And that really just caused school to sort of close indefinitely. And that was like really striking, because I remember working extremely hard during high school, being ready to kind of enjoy that second semester of senior year, right? Having the opportunity to maybe have some get-togethers with friends, or be able to host graduation parties, what have you, right? But unfortunately, I wasn't able to do that. And the other interesting thing is, I was supposed to give a live graduation speech during my high school graduation. But because of the pandemic, it was a really awkward situation, because I actually had to watch myself give a speech, and everyone else was sort of sitting next to me. So that was also like a very interesting situation there. And like, as you may imagine, moving into college as well. So I moved in person, completely masked up, and had a fully online classes the first year of college. It was very hard to meet new people. I had to learn how to leverage, networking websites to reach out to professionals, because I knew a lot of professionals were sort of at home. So try to maximize on that, and reach out to people. So it's just a really interesting game of social networking, right? Because I think in a pre-pandemic society, we had the opportunity to be able to interact with people right next to us, whether you're in the office space, or maybe working in a clinic, or being at school. You had the opportunity to talk to people that were just right next to you, and maybe overhear conversation and pitch in your thoughts. But in an online setting, it's very interesting how the dynamic can look, right? There's got to be a purpose behind why you're reaching out to someone. You can't just reach out to someone just cause, right? Because people, of course, with the online things, timelines have been extended. People are busier. So that's sort of been my experience. And I think the biggest thing I will say is I just try to make the most of being online. So whether it was just learning how to do web development, or reaching out to people on LinkedIn to learn more about their careers, or just generally just trying to make the most of a virtual format in different ways was something I just tried doing, because I think it's important, even though there were some negative sides to COVID, it's always important to view the positive aspects of the situation you're given and make the most of it. So that was sort of like my experience there.
I agree with you. First few weeks was not bad. It was like an sort of, an adventure sort of. You're in a lockdown situation, working from home, a convenience, no, commute, and just go up to our kitchen and eat, and it was sort of you're with your family. It was like a forced quality time. The first few weeks were a little bit interesting. I mean, I didn't never. I think at least I didn't know this would last so long,
Yeah.
and it will become such a big pandemic. I mean, that's becoming really became started scaring when the death numbers started going up. So coming back to Surfy, I know restaurant industry hospitality was very badly impacted. Tell us about how you guys transitioned into a different mode of operation of pickups and all that, and how was it? And you guys were even economically quite bad hit.
Yeah, it was literally like your world turning upside down. Um, it was like lack of knowledge, lack of everything, because nobody really knew what it is, and no wonder it's called novel virus. So it has never happened before. So we were like literally caught off guard, um, as to what exactly we should do, whether we close down completely, keep some staff, do whatever, because the only thing that we were allowed to do at that point of time was some carryouts. And, when your entire model changes to that, I mean, it's really very hard to turn everything around and, work with that. Also, unfortunately, we don't have our own delivery service, so we were dependent upon delivery services like the Uber Eats and the DoorDashes of the world, and they would actually charge us an arm and a leg. So to begin with, we were like paying 30% of the top, of your top revenue to these companies, and that was completely unsustainable, because that's fine if that's happening in addition to your regular business. So that's still okay. But if that becomes your main business, then it is not sustainable to pay 30% at the top and then also, stay in the business or stay profitable. So there were a lot of things were happening at that point of time. There was lack of everything. We didn't know where to get masks from, how to work around. It was like we were all very scared also at the same time, because you are being exposed to people that you have no clue about who's carrying the virus and who's not. So it was almost like being in the front line, not as bad as Harvinder, who was in the hospital. So but this was also very, very unsettling. And um, the thing was that we were very lucky to have been associated with Jose Andre, who runs the World Central Kitchen. And we started getting some orders from them to supply to the health services professionals in the hospitals, some senior homes, some essential services people and stuff like that. So that kind of helped us somewhat to kind of stay in business as such. But even then, there was so much of logistics that was going on. So, like, different, they also had issues about delivery and who to, even these deliveries had to be made by someone. Some of the deliveries we made ourselves to some of these hospitals and other places, but it was becoming very unsettling. And then some of the delivery companies, it was like if one is not available, they go to the other, and logistically it was a nightmare. So all that was going on. And also, um, funnily enough, like at home, everything had to change too, because I didn't want to sleep in the same bedroom as my wife because I was exposed to all of these things happening. So I moved to another room. Like, I'll enter the house, and then immediately go to the bathroom, wash my laundry, and then take a shower before you do anything, because the fear of unknown, the nobody really knew what's going on, who's carrying what. So it was very, very challenging on professional as well as personal level, something that the world has not seen before.
Yeah, I can connect with you, Surfi, because our in-laws live with us and they are in the 90s, and our biggest concern were them. So we made sure we were very disciplined in not going out, only for the grocery, with all the mask and protection and all of that. A quick dash in, dash out. I can understand. And in the starting, I think there was so much unknowns that I still remember. Lot of us were not even touching our mail or the
Sure.
Amazon delivery. They would sit there for 2 3 days, then we would touch. And I mean, there was, yeah, I so connect with it. But
Our,
gradually things improved,
yeah.
and definitely after when the vaccines came.
Our worst nightmare was like even the supply issues. We were not getting everything that we needed to take care of the things. So I had to run to Restaurant Depot oftentimes to buy stuff. This is like a wholesale warehouse for restaurants, and I had to go over there to buy stuff. And that place was really scary because there were people milling all over the place, and then there were people who were all kind of people. Some were being careful and wearing masks. Others were like flaunting and yelling that they don't want to wear masks and things like that. So it was like a crazy, crazy time.
Yeah, I think as people are learning, again, and that, as you said, the contact thing, the surface transmission, like we were so naive about this virus, and
True.
everybody was so scared as well, rightly scared because
Yeah,
you didn't know.
correct, correct. So, how's it now? Let's come back to where are you in this transition? I mean, of course, we are still not out in Montgomery County, indoor mask, where, which is funny, they did a sort of a yes no thing. They took it off 2 days, what, 3 4 days back, and now they're going to put it back again because the patients increased on November 4th or 5th. I think they're going to mandate again for indoors, but people don't listen. I went to some theater and all, and they said, I asked the usher, can you please tell some of these people to wear masks? And they said, no, I can't force them. Yes, there is a mandate, but some of them are, the mask is hanging below their nose. So where are we? I'd like to know, Harvinder. I know a lot of sort of discoveries and scientist advancement has happened in this area. On 60 Minutes, they were talking about in the Defense Department about this filter with where you do dialysis and whole blood goes through it, and you can filter out COVID. There are Merck is coming out with tablets. Please tell us about it.
So I think, again, I think it's been amazing as to how much progress got made, and I think that, as you mentioned earlier on, that it was the vaccines. I mean, there has not been vaccines developed against anything at this pace. Like you have a vaccine out, being tested in like almost 6 to 8 months. And then it was approved in 1 year. So I mean, that was totally unheard of in the past. And I think some of it, so again, go with you again, cancer is one of those fields that had made a lot of progress over the last few years, and there's been a lot of research. And when President Obama, before he left, he had that moonshot project where they had started with giving funding for cancer research. So one of the areas that had gotten funding for research was, and again, that goes to the strength of this country, how things are done. And then they had given the money for the vaccines for cancer, and the mRNA technology is, that's where it stems from. So they use that technology obviously to develop the COVID vaccine in such a quick fashion, just because that technology existed, and they just had to know the COVID vaccine, and they could know that, okay, this is the spike protein, and if we can make an antibody to that, so we make the body make an antibody to the spike protein, we can neutralize the virus. So I think that was I think the biggest sort of when the vaccine came. So there was a sigh of relief that, okay, now we can get the vaccine and we protect it, and then you get the second vaccine. So initially, obviously, there was the hiccups with the logistics of the vaccine as well, because again, it has to be sub-zero, and then where it could be given, how it could be stored, and some of those things. But then I think that, so we were all very excited in healthcare. Obviously, okay, now the vaccine, people are getting vaccinated, and we'll be fine. And then came the Delta virus. So people who are vaccinated got COVID as well. So I think some of that bubble, got bursted right there. That we were very hopeful. So we never sort of left the mask policy, in the hospital or restrictions, just because I don't think we are really there yet. When we could say, okay, we are off the hook. There has been, I think, the vaccine still remains our main defense. Because there is the antibodies, you can give it if somebody's not very sick. There are remdesivir, steroids. So all those things have shown that it can make people, people who are very sick, it can make them better. So, but then, still people do get sick, and some people will still die. And that's why we have all these deaths that you mentioned, that how many of our countrymen have died. So I think now, I think with the booster, I would think that things will change. I still feel that it'll probably take another year, for us to be really able to sort of, go without a mask in closed public spaces. I think, yes, you could be in your own group where that you can trust people who are there, that they haven't been exposed or they have, taken precautions. But I think to go out really in a public place like a theater without the mask, I think is still, in my view, is still risky.
Yeah, the sweet number they always talked about right from the beginning was reaching 80%
Right.
Of population getting vaccinated, and that's when we will sort of have less of the spread.
Yeah. And Montgomery County, is one of the most sort of progressive counties, in the country, and we have not even crossed 70% yet.
Yes, correct. And they are giving boosters now, and the vaccine has been approved for children 5 to 11. So we are making progress.
We are, definitely.
Yeah. Ritvik, where are we? How are things now?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. So I guess here at Georgia Tech, I can just talk a little bit about the transition from last year to this year, right? So just being a second year student now at Georgia Tech, I'd say the first year is primarily just a lot of people wearing their masks being required indoors. So at libraries, everyone had to wear a mask. And what happened was something quite interesting, right? So at least in college perspective, actually Georgia Tech released their vaccines out in March or April, so relatively early. So college campuses, college students, and faculty had the opportunity to get their 2 shots quite early, which was nice. And what that caused was a lot of people thinking that because they got their second dose, that they no longer had to wear their mask, right? So then things got a little bit of a gray area, if that makes sense. And going into the summer, right, I just came back home, did my stuff remotely, and then when I went back in the fall, we see that the overwhelming majority of people don't wear their mask. But inside in classrooms, teachers strongly recommend masks, and a lot of people wear their masks when they're inside a classroom, but when they go outdoors, they typically don't. But the good news is they've released the third dose, the booster shot for any student to get. So I've got my booster shot, which is good, and hopefully, as I continue to wear my mask and remain safe out there, others can do so as well. And I think it's kind of interesting, right? Because a lot of people have sort of equated COVID to this current rate at where it is, depending on the sort of our age, right? So being between ages 18 to 22, they kind of view it. A lot of people tend to view it like a flu, just because of the low death rates among our age. But I still think it's important, just because we are unsure of the long-term impacts, to just remain safe throughout the process, right? And that's sort of where I stand with that. And I'm still masked up, even though I got my third dose. Still want to make sure I'm safe. And yeah, I think that's sort of where we are right now,
Thank
on
you.
my end.
Thank you. That's the best way to do it. Where are we, Surfi, now in your restaurant? I mean, the food catering business?
So right now, people have slowly started coming back, and we were also very fortunate that we were able to get permission to build a outdoor deck next to the restaurant. And in that, Rockwell City was very helpful, and we hope that with the community support, we may be able to keep it for longer period, even though they say that this permission is only for the period when the pandemic is still there.
Hmm.
People have started coming inside, but still they are not comfortable. I'm not comfortable when I go out to eat myself. So it's going to be a long time, I feel, before people are going to be fully comfortable being indoors. And as Ritvik was saying, what I noticed in DC restaurants where you have more younger people going over there, they seem to be a little bit more comfortable and confident about going out and mingling with people. We in we Our restaurants are more family kind of restaurants, so we don't see the same kind of abandon as such. So that issue continues. Montgomery County, again, they are thinking about bringing back the mask mandate again, because apparently the numbers have gone up just a tiny bit. So it's like nobody really knows how this is going to pan out. So it's literally I'm taking a day at a time at this point of time, and you just have also enhanced your technology to do online business and stuff like that. So a lot of our deliveries and pickups used to come through these platforms like Uber Eats and DoorDash and Grubhubs and all that. But it has allowed us an opportunity to develop our own site, which is like online ordering, uh, with the help of these delivery companies, also in some cases, where people can go to your site directly and place the order. So in that case, I'm not paying a huge commission to these delivery companies. And we constantly try and encourage people that if you really want us to stay around, help us and order from those sites, which is like your food service facilities' own online ordering platform. So that helps us a great deal.
Hmm.
So
So I have a question. This is a sort of a individual, personal one. That when you look back at this experience, it's almost now we are into it by 18 months or something, or more than that. And what what sort of experience you're going to take away, and has it changed you as a person?
is
Um,
that is that for me?
Arvinder,
Oh, sorry.
Survi, you can start, Survi.
Yeah, you can start.
Go ahead, Arvinder.
No, no, please go ahead. I'll talk
Okay.
after you.
It has made a great deal of difference in the way how I look at the world and life as such. Um, it's like you started appreciating life a little bit more. You are living more day at a time. I feel people are a little bit more compassionate with all these things happening. A lot of people have taken to some healthy habits, like walking. For myself, I can say that I started walking pretty much just a couple of months into the pandemic, and I make it a point to walk like 4 or 5 miles every day, regardless. So things like that, we are definitely become more conscious of the frailties of life, that you're here today and you're gone tomorrow. And the first victim that I know of was a dear friend of ours from our industry called Floyd Cordos, who's a very well-known chef from New York, and he had a few restaurants, and he had gone to India to shoot for Netflix serial on food business. And on his way back, he apparently contracted the virus somewhere in Frankfurt, and he looked okay for a couple of days, and then right away, he was in the intensive care unit, and within a few days he was gone. So he was the first person, and then like we were in shock, absolutely, because he was nice, a healthy person. He was not a very young man, but he was in his 50s, but nothing seemed wrong with him. So it has changed the way you look at life, definitely. There's absolutely no question about that.
Yeah. Um, Either Harvinder or Ritvik.
Yeah, so I was gonna say that it did, as you said, you realize the fragility of life all over again. That normally we see that in our profession, but then you realize when it actually comes home, then you realize that how it is. So, and you could see like in among our staff, like if a patient calls in, oh, they just got tested positive and they were in the office 2 days prior getting either their chemotherapy, or they saw like five different, they came in contact with five different staff, and you would see like the younger staff, like somebody who may be a mom, crying because they were so scared that what if they got COVID, that they got a little child at home. Same thing, when you are like, you got exposed until you got tested negative like 3 days later, it kept, I mean, you had that fear in you that what if I get it? What if I am that? Because we have had physicians who got sick, and you could see your own. So we had like this, very nice. We have very nice Indian physician who has been in the community for like over 40 years, practice, very well known. He got sick right in the beginning, in his office, practicing there, and he was in the ICU. He had tracheostomy on the ventilator for many days, but fortunately, he did well. He survived, and he went to rehab, and then now he's doing great again. But it's just that you saw that that could have been me in that bed, So because it's not, we are not immune to those things. It's not like, and we're not 18 anymore that you could say world is ours. Nothing's going to happen to us. So I think that was really sobering. But it did bring in, as you said, some of those positive things like, spending time with family, walking, because obviously initially for the first month or two when we're still learning, the days were not that busy. Like we were taking turns. Okay, not everybody's going to go to office every day. So kind of, taking turns. So yes, you had more time. My wife always wanted a dog, but I used to resist because we don't have time. We don't have time. So finally got a dog, it really made a big difference, So, and I'm sure a lot of people did that. A lot of people got pets during COVID,
Yes.
and it's sort of bring that aspect in your life why people love pets, or what pets can give you, or what satisfaction and love it brings in life. So I think some of those things were really positive as well that came out of it. But it's still it's not the same. Yes, you still long for the days that you could just go sit out in a restaurant or eat, or just be merry, but it's
Travel.
not
Yeah.
not there yet. But I'm
Yes.
hoping soon, in a year or so, we'll be there.
Yep. Ritvik.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what Surfy and Harvinder both said were, great perspectives, and couldn't agree more. And I think just under my perspective, the way in which COVID occurred, especially on a college campus, I can definitely say that cases were crazy. I mean, we had a daily COVID case tracker that we used to always check every day. Used to stress us out. We used to get stressed for midterms, and we'd also get stressed about this COVID tracker, right? So it's like two elements of stress at the same time. And I just remember, like, I would get a text from our residence hall, like our resident manager who was in our floor, our dorm floor, and said, "Hey, uh, there's a lot of people in your floor who got COVID this week. Go get tested, because testing was not required, because Georgia Tech is a public school. So it was just very, very mind blowing, because the communal bathrooms, right? Dorms don't have your own bathroom, right? So you have to share a bathroom. Just crazy to know that I could be showering in the same place as someone who showered before or after had COVID, right? Or maybe they didn't know they had COVID, but they eventually got it. So just had to be super, super hygienic, right? Going back to what Surfy said, I think became very healthy from here. I think taking my health very seriously was something I definitely got out of it. I think a lot of people have gotten out of it. And definitely, like, what you both said, I think being thankful for what we have, I think, is really, really important. And I think it also gave us an opportunity to really emphasize self development, right? Because I think being able to work from home gave us the opportunity to take on a passion or two, or maybe a hobby or two, and learn more about ourselves as people, right? I think it kind of did two things to me, right? It made me question a lot about what my purpose in life was now that high school was sort of over, going into college. What was really my outlook on life? Like, what do I ultimately want to accomplish? And then, secondly, even though that was sort of a challenging part of the process, the more rewarding part was figuring out, okay, here's what I may not know exactly what I want to do, but here are some things I can do to sort of move myself forward. I think a lot of my peers in college kind of feel the same way. So I think overall it was a good experience, just if you look at it in a positive sense. But of course, for many others, it could be a negative experience. And I think just going back to what Harvinder said as well, just looking at things positively, I think, is key, and that's how we move ourselves forward as people. So
Yeah. And talking about Harvinder, I volunteer at the Humane Society, and I saw that in the beginning, a lot of people took the dogs and cats fostering and even adoption. And then now the sad part was that some of them came back after the vaccines came, and they were back to sort of their working life and daily life. But I can see the connection, and but it was much better than before, and and it feels good. And another thing which came out was service. I think I started looking myself into, is it, am I a help to the rest of the community? I mean, how am I helping? How are my services helping others? And first, my services on for just your DC South Asian Arts Council link was limited. But then I started, because I was at home, I said I can do virtually a lot of things. So we started the literary festival, we started the panel discussions on all the important social issues like LGBTQ plus, hate crimes against Asians. Today we are having this discussion on pandemic, and a lot of other book authors came out on the on cancer and all of that. So we are doing that, and so that how well we can serve. A lot more happened because of pandemic. I think we had a time to reflect that what are we really worth, and what are we really providing for our existence. So I connect with all of you. I think all of us went through that phase, and hopefully, it will lead to all of us to some good place. I don't know. I mean, remains to be seen. Although I see some back to normal stuff when it comes to Indian marriages and all. There's still the big fat Indian wedding rather than a short, sweet, contained wedding. But that's what it is. It is what it is, and hopefully, let's see what comes out of it. I wanted to ask all of you, maybe one by one, what message you want to give to our audience today, from your experience. What would you like to share, or what would you like happen that you want to say?
Manoj, I would like to just sort of, the point that you just brought up about being part of this community and, reaching out to the community and helping out. Because I think we as an ethnic group are very lucky. We are, we came with our parents, insisted upon good education, and we have always had, I think we are much blessed compared to, a lot of others. So at gurdwaras, typically we have like langars, and the gurdwaras become social places, and like every Sunday, every Friday, oh, we have like four things, or somebody would say, oh, I'll have this and that. So making it fancy. But then when pandemic happened, obviously, so I am associated with Gurdwara right here on Travella Road. It's called Guru Gobind
Yeah.
Singh Foundation.
That
So
was the first one. Yeah.
yeah, so we closed, and then for 2 weeks I'm part of the board. So we decided that no, we need to do something more here. So what we started out was that it started out with giving out langar to the community. So we the gurdwara, so again in a very controlled, hygienic way, that started making langar. So for to date, we have served over 700,000 meals in the last 1.5 years at all. And then partnered with the Montgomery County. So we served over, I don't know, maybe, and I can't give you a number, but tons of food, the raw, like rice and beans, packaged those, and fresh produce. And again, part of it was supplied by the farmers. So we became a center, and still to date, every Sunday there's a big line of cars that come in every morning where people pick up produce. And it's not just say the Sikhs become, no, it's like everyone in the community, even the kids, high school kids, they came and volunteered there. So I felt that that was a great lesson for our community as an ethnic group, that I think we should keep up with these things. And as Surfi said, how they partnered with and then served meals to the hospitals. So I think it's something that we as a community need to do more, because
Yeah.
we were very good in doing big fat Indian weddings, but then I think we need to also sort of focus a little bit on that aspect of sharing.
I agree. I mean, one thing good about Sikh religion is always is about seva, and worldwide they have been doing a lot of social work. It's beauty about that religion. So I have a lot of respect.
Yeah,
Uh,
I was just going to say that it just became a conduit.
yeah.
There were people from all aspects, not just Sikhs, as I said. So
Yes.
everyone would just volunteer, kids, from all aspects of life, even non-Indian kids, or non-Indian
Yes.
religion kids.
Yes. There's a
They
lot of good stories.
they
Yeah.
were volunteering there as well. So I think that was
Yes.
really heartwarming to see that.
Surfi.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything Harvinder said. And this is definitely about giving back to the community. We all are somewhat privileged in some ways. And um, an occurrence or a pandemic of this nature reminds you that if you really think you have control over things, you actually have zero control. And things can change on a dime, like who could have thought that all over the world you call anybody and what are you doing? I'm in lockdown. So it was, nobody ever thought that we would all be in the same situation, moving from living room to the family room to the kitchen, and pretty much that's it. So, it just kind of gives you an opportunity to pause for a minute and understand that the life is not going to be there forever. So whatever time you've been given, make the most of it. I mean, whether you are talking about giving to the community or helping on in any way, or even just reaching out somebody who needs to talk to somebody who doesn't have anybody to talk to, and things of that nature. I also am a big fan of the giving nature of Sikh religion, that the seva that they do, as Manoj said, and it's really amazing. And it's not only here in Montgomery County; it's global. So that's something amazing, and it's really really very good. So it's just to stop for a second, look around, do your part.
Yeah. Redwig.
Yeah, I think both what Harvinder and Surfi said are great messages to take away from COVID-19, the pandemic as a whole. I think for me personally, what I've come to realize is that everything happens for a reason, right? So there's a reason why this pandemic occurred. We may not know exactly what that reason is, but there is a reason behind it. Similar to why there's a reason why, you meet certain people or you have the opportunity to do certain things or be in a certain position in your life. Right. So I think it's important to just be thankful for who you are and what you have, and to embrace that, right, and make the most of the opportunities that are given to you, and really just seize it. I think that's sort of how I view things as well. Just going back to, like I said, there are a lot of ways I could have viewed COVID-19 in a negative way, right? I could have said, didn't have, senior prom, senior jokes, no proper graduation, no first day of school. I could have gone on a rant, but I think there's not really a point, right? It's kind of over. That the past is the past. You got to focus on the present for a better future. So how do we make the most of what we have today, and make the most of our time now for a better future? So valuing the people that you interact with, right? Self-selecting a quality group of individuals that you can form close relationships with, whether that's family or close friends, and really just showing your gratitude for them, whether it's reaching out to them and telling them, hey, I hope you have an awesome day today, or hey, let's meet up. It's been a few months. I think those little things can really go far in life. So I guess that's my key message there.
Yeah, another thing I would say good came out. I don't know if you guys remember when initially when the lockdown happened and even India was in a tight lockdown, two things did benefit: environment, and the animals really enjoyed walking around town. I mean, all these wild animals coming into cities, wondering what is going on. In Mumbai, all these monkeys were jumping into swimming pools and enjoying that all the humans are gone. And it was so much silence. From so many cities in Punjab, you could see the Himalayas, which you never saw before, the towns, the ozone layer was back. And so I hope human beings learn from it, that how valuable they are. And they did. In the beginning, they started respecting their doorman, their maid in India, and how valuable they were, the cleaning services, which they, in a busy life, in a normal life, they never reflected back or had the time to pause and appreciate all those which is around them, even the family or friends, and how vulnerable we are. I think we talked about it. So I think we have summarized it very well. Any last minute comments before we start closing? I would just want something from Harvinder about hope from the medical perspective, if anything you want to say.
No, I mean, I think we have made a lot of progress. I mean, as I said, it's like, and it's not like these things don't happen. I mean, we had, there were always examples of the flu, pandemic of the 1909 or 1919, when was that? So many
Spanish flu, yeah.
Yeah, Spanish flu, and millions of people died here. And in fact, a lot of people died in India too. If you look at that data, I mean, again, it's not like these things have not happened before and people have not. So this is going to happen. But I feel the progress that was made in that 1 year, with the vaccine was amazing. I think this is going to be something like flu. It is not going away. So I think until we have maximum number of people getting vaccinated, kids getting vaccinated, then we will see that where, life becomes easier. And then the acceptance of it. I mean, I wish that, science is never exact. And it's not like you say something one day, it's quite possible that you have to eat it up, a week later, just because the data changes. So it's an evolving science. And if people start respecting that it's an evolving science, and just respect what the science is today. Like, I still have the healthcare professionals, and you have seen in news how the firefighters in New York, they are like considered the very best, or police considered the finest. They are refusing to take the vaccine. And imagine if the frontline workers, so what sort of message are we giving? What sort of education we have, where people are not willing to listen and willing to, think about what this is all about and how we can protect. So I think there is a lot of hope. It's just that I think the message needs to be consistent so that people learn that it's for their benefit. There is nobody's personal interest in this, that oh, they are doing it because of this, or they're Democrats or they're Republicans. I think we need to rise above it and, be like the most advanced country in the world.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's very sad once this whole politics and religion and all play into simple basic science and common sense, it becomes really muddy. Uh, I also don't understand why people fight for not wearing a mask. Every day there are incidents, either on a flight with a flight attendant, or in a restaurant, or it's just mind-boggling. When vaccines are the only way out of this pandemic, I agree with you at all completely.
Well, I'm very hopeful. I think, in the next year or two,
Mhm.
this is going to be behind and it's going to be like flu. That, yes, you have to get your vaccine every year if you don't want to get sick.
Yes, correct.
And I think the mortality comes from the rush in the hospitals. Obviously, if the case load is low, the mortality is going to be very low as well.
One quick question I had, and from Surfi, we are seeing this inflation, the spike in prices in groceries and restaurants. Um, do you think this is temporary? That it will, once the supply chain is fixed, these might start to come down, even the oil prices and all. You're not an economist or a finance person, but do you see anything in any trend, or you guys talk about between you what's going on?
It's a relative term, being temporary. So I think it is not as temporary as like a few months, but I feel that it looks like the momentum will take it to at least, I would think, year and a half, 2 years minimum. A lot of equipments that we are buying has gone up by more than 50%. And not only is the cost, the procurement time, the lead time has gone up like unbelievable. So nothing is available now kind of situation. Whatever you order, it's kind of is taking a whole lot longer, whether it is because of the ports being in the shape that they are in, the services being restrained, and the biggest issue that everybody is facing is workers. So when you don't have workers, then you end up kind of increasing the stakes, and then you're paying a whole lot more money, and those expenses have to be passed on to someone, and kind of contributing to the inflation in general. And no other industry is as affected as hospitality right now, because it's just impossible to find people to work. And the thing is, the turnover is so high because there is a war going on, people are stealing people. So then you hire somebody, train him up for a few days, and then next thing you know is gone. So it's I personally feel that we are looking at least, in my opinion, the end of 2022.
Yeah, that's a good point. So let me say a few things. A lot of good points came out in tonight's discussion. All summarizes to service, helping each other, and for sure getting vaccinated. And that's the way all is out. And please do so. Please wear mask where it's required. We have come a long way if you just look back a few months. And if we remain disciplined, I think we'll be like everyone, one of all our panelists said, we see a light in the end of the tunnel. So please, the message is please get vaccinated. And thank you all for tonight's discussion. I really, really appreciate it. And like a happy Diwali to all. And I hope you have a good year. And like I said, I say always in the end, life is short, be happy, and have no regrets. Namaste,
Absolutely.
goodbye, and take good care of yourself.
Happy
Namaste.
Diwali.
Happy
Happy
Diwali.
Diwali.
Namaste.
Did the poly.
New Year.